Okay, hello everybody. Jono here from Fitness Education Online. Super excited for this week's podcast because we've got a very special guest who actually operates just down the road from me. He's got a gym that's literally like 5 minutes away from where my parents live, where I grew up. So I want to send my parents down there because his specialty is actually around training older adults. He's the director of Active and Ageless Over 50s, which is a health club in Hurstville. So without further ado, let me introduce the one and only Mr. Heath Jones. Heath, how are you?
I'm very good, mate. Yourself?
Yes, I'm awesome. Heath,
Good.
I'd like to start off with a bit of an intro. I've obviously connected with you on social media over the last couple of weeks. If someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, this guy's got a gym for over 50s, is he an over 50s guy? Is he an older guy? I'm just curious, how and why did you get into it?
Yeah, I'm not 50 yet, Jono, but I will be one day. And I'm hoping when I am there, I'm a relatively fit and healthy over 50-year-old as well. So, mate, a bit of background. I'm actually a registered nurse by trade, and probably worked in that industry for around 20 years. More recently, time in the military, and
also. Start when you were 5? Did you say 20 years? Did you start when you were 5, or how old are you there?
You might want to clean your screen there, mate. No, and look, working in the hospital, you obviously see a lot of older adults that I suppose were aging before their time. They were, to a certain extent, trapped inside their own body, and it was quite sad to see that they get to the stage where they can't dress themselves, shower themselves, or feed themselves, and they're going, and yet some of them completely cognitively intact and essentially, trapped inside their own body. And they kind of started to realize that the main determining factor for older adults and, the difference between them having a good quality of life or not is what they did to themselves in terms of activity. And, and most importantly is strength activity. So, and you see the disparity between people, of that age group. Some of them are completely involved with life. They're super active and they're, living some of the best years of their life. They're relatively financially set up. They're retired and whatnot, and they're really just amongst the getting out there and living their life. So, and yet the flip side of that is the scenario I've just, given to you. So, and being involved in gyms and being a personal trainer and that for around 15 years or so myself, I kind of, started seeing mature adults. I prefer to call them mature adults as opposed to older adults, by the way. Started seeing them in the gyms looking a little out of place, probably doing exercises that they shouldn't have, probably looking a little intimidated. And I kind of, that's when I kind of had the idea that, hey, why don't we do something specific for that demographic? That unfortunately they're not that demographic is really under-resourced, and they're the ones that they've built this country and they've done a great thing, and we want to try and give back to them and provide them with something that's they're comfortable with, they're confident in going to our club or our gym, and the exercises that need to be a little bit more specific for them, lower impact, lower intensity, all that good stuff, and with people that not only know what they're doing, but are super passionate about helping these people age healthily.
Yes, love that. Yeah. And how long have you had the gym for now, Heath?
We opened in late November last year, December.
And I believe a couple things. If you're listening to this, you've still got a bit of an introductory offer, right, Heath?
So we do, mate. It's massive heaps of interest in it, which is really good. Awesome. I've had to take on 2 new trainers this week, which is really good. So we've got an offer which is 20 days for $59, which is unlimited access to us, and that goes through all the setup processes and whatnot, screening and assessment. And so we've still got that going on for another week or so, but so far it's really good.
Awesome. So if you're listening to this and you know any mature adults in the Hurstville area, send them over to Heath's way. I'll put the links to the social media down in the show notes. And you're probably looking to hire more trainers soon as well, right, Heath?
I'd say, mate, yeah, absolutely. If we keep this upswing in member numbers. Probably in the next month or so, I'll be looking at another casual, if not two casual trainers. Ones that also are not just coming in for a job because they want to be a trainer, are passionate about mature adults.
Yes. Okay. So if you're listening to this and you're a trainer and you're passionate about training mature adults, probably the best thing to do once again is follow Heath on social media. It's Active and Ageless. I'll put the links in the show notes, but Active and Ageless over 50s.
Active and Ageless, Hurstville Gym. Yeah.
Awesome. On Facebook and Instagram. So best thing to do, follow Heath on there, and then you'll get updated with what's going on. But what I'd like to talk about today, Heath, is just some general tips about training older adults. Now, I know one of your specialties, or one thing you like to focus on, is all about strength training. So a lot of what you do there when you're training the mature adults is about strength training. Now, what can you tell us that? Why is that so important for mature adults?
Yeah, sure, mate. I'd say it's extremely important for starters. And in actual fact, strength and functional strength is probably the biggest determining factor of the level of that an older adult, a level of life quality that an older adult will lead. So, like I mentioned before, that you can get a massive disparity of people of the same age purely of what they've done throughout their lives in terms of physical activity. So, one of the main things I'm talking about older adults now, kind of older than 80 years of age. You can give them independence, which is a massive thing. They can stay living at home. They can still do the activities of daily living, such as dressing themselves, showering themselves, feeding themselves, just those kind of things that make you an independent person. Also, as well, at any age, really, there's huge benefits for the mental health side of things. But also with the younger of the mature adults demographic, kind of, between 50 to 70 years of age, I suppose, this strength training in that demographic, in the subclass demographic of 50 to 70, it really helps them stay in their leisure activities for longer, be it tennis or golf or swimming or bushwalking or whatever it may be. You can't just do those activities safely without having basic functional strength as well. So that's really important, even for injury minimization, joint stability and whatnot. I quite often use the analogy with my mature adults, and a lot of them think, and don't get me wrong, I think bushwalking, tennis and golf and, all that good stuff is fantastic. However, you need functional strength to be able to do them safely. But what I try to say to people, if you see a professional athlete, for example, they don't just go out there every weekend and play football or compete in a surfing event or whatever. They train above and beyond what is required of them on game day. Okay, so if these people want to go and do these leisure activities and do them to a good level and do them safely, they need to have the functional or adaptable strength required of them to be able to go and do these activities. Yes.
Okay. Makes sense. Now, what about the differences, Heath? Strength training in, say, a younger adult versus a mature adult? And even there's so many, it's going to change a lot depending on the age and and how functional that adult is, and even just people in general. Like me at 18, I just wanted to bench press. I just wanted to look amazing at the beach, and that's what some of the younger guys might want. But when you're 50, 60, 70, they may be thinking, hold on, I don't want to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not going to the beach with my shirt on. What can you tell us about, I guess, the differences in both the outcomes and the training as well, older adults versus younger adults?
Mate, I think you hit the nail on the head right at the start. Then when you said when you're 18, you'd be doing bench presses and then making sure you look all buffed at the beach. But, even though mature adults still want to look good, the main thing is the quality of life that they can lead by being stronger and more functional. So understanding that is extremely important. So I suppose we need to understand their limitations as an individual. We've got a lot of range of motion issues, especially in older males. If you're out there and you're listening and you're over 50, you've got to stretch, you've got to move, you've got to be mobile, because some of them are stiff as a board. There's some of them are reasonably strong still, but that range of motion, especially once again in the blokes, can be quite limited. So biggest differences in actual, I suppose, exercise prescription for them. We want to making sure the actual exercises are generally lower impact, lower intensity, sometimes a slower cadence to making sure we're using the right muscle groups. We generally start people off with machines, and just to get that foundational strength. I'm a big fan of getting off the machines as well and using, kettlebells, dumbbells, steps, TRX bands, other bands, etc. But initially, for the really deconditioned people in this target range, you need to build up that functional strength first. And the best way to do that safely is on a machine. The machines we have they're designed for mature adults. We can wind them right down to zero, really. So that's pretty much one of the main kind of things that we focus on. With the outcomes, with what you could expect for older adults or mature adults, is yes, you're not going to get them wanting to, looking like a buff stud such as you and going down the beach after you've been doing your bench presses, but they want to move better is the main thing. And as you know, exercise helps with pain reduction. Exercise releases endorphins, which has a similar chemical structure to like an opioid, like morphine. So we're finding heaps of people, they're saying that, a lot of the pains that they've had for a long, long time are starting to dissipate. Also too, touching back on the mental health benefits again, we're finding that within kind of a month or so, a lot of people are just saying they're just generally so much happier. And that probably has, several reasons why. If the pain has reduced, also if they're moving better and just being a lot more involved in life, it's generally going to be a massive outcome for them, a positive outcome for them.
Question here, Heath. How important, because you do a lot of group stuff there, right?
Yeah, we do.
How is that a big factor as well? Because that's another thing. I think when I was 18, man, I would go with my headphones in. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I would just, do my own thing. But I feel, as a more mature adult, it's probably the opposite. You probably got less friends. You're not at work anymore. Maybe your spouse isn't there. Maybe that community is a huge part. What do you find there? Is that more important with mature adults, or do you still get a lot of people that just want to go and train on their own?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think it's important at any age, that social adherence factor. Unfortunately, the younger demographic is becoming more alienated, amongst themselves because of, like you said, your earphones in and you're looking down your phone all the time, looking at social media and whatnot. So the mature demographic, you're absolutely right. A lot of them aren't working anymore, or they're working, only part-time, so they don't have that kind of that workplace morale. So yeah, absolutely. We're seeing some really cool relationships starting to form. And at the end of the class, the people are always, asking each other, you coming tomorrow? And they get excited when they say yes. And that's really, really cool, because a lot of these people are probably quite lonely as well. There's been a lot of studies around in exercise adherence around people that do group sessions or classes. They're much more likely to continue to be your members if they're doing group sessions. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if the exercise component to why they come to us becomes secondary, that's fine with me. If they're coming there and they're getting fit, they're getting strong, they're getting healthier, but that's almost a secondary component to why they're coming there. Primarily, they're coming there because of the social engagement. Well, how cool is that? It's it's one way to get them in the door and one way to definitely keep them there as well.
I think it's the best. I go back when I was a kid. I used to love playing sport. Right? I used to play rugby league and rugby union, and I would go mainly just to see my friends. I used to love going to training, not for the actual training, not in those days anyway. I just like seeing my friends. And it's like, okay, well, this is what you do. You want to see your friends, you go and you train with your friends, you know? And because of that, I was always just super fit. Not because I was super passionate about exercise or I loved it. It's just I loved hanging out with my friends. And that's what I did. I just trained every single day with my friends. I wanted to hang out with them. And as a result of that, I got super fit. And I just had a really good relationship with exercise. So I love how you've mentioned that there. Follow-up question here, and this will be an interesting one. How important is social media with that age group? Because, you know, if you're training younger people, you got to have an Instagram account, you got to have a Facebook group, you know, you got to do all this stuff. Does that matter with the people you train, or do you have to, you know, do a lot of emails and paperwork and telephone numbers? What can you tell us there?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think, well, definitely Facebook has worked a lot better for us than any of the other platforms. So a lot of mature adults are on social media, probably more so than we think. They're probably not as vocal as, or as, you know, visible as some of the younger people, but they are there. We would have most of our, well, actually, probably initially we had most of our clients come through Facebook. I think most of them now through word of mouth. Which is fantastic. We must be doing something right. So, but yeah, look, they're still on there, and you know, we try to provide a lot of educational pieces. My assistant manager, shout out to Ariel, she's an absolute gun. She does pretty much all our social media now. I don't get a chance to, and she, you know, every day she'll put up something about osteoporosis or she did a really good one a couple of days ago, and just what I mentioned before about the benefits of exercise on mental health and whatnot. And she'll share that across all the platforms, and generally we get a lot of engagement from that as well. And you know, at the end of the day, whether that is as a platform for just people being educated, that's fine. But if it also means that people are therefore reaching out to us and coming in and becoming members, that's fantastic also.
Well, this is what I've realized with social media, just from my parents. So both my parents are on Facebook, and they hardly ever post, but they look at it, and they look at every post. Like saying me, you look at me on Facebook, I'm like, nah, not unless it's like a big photo or something that captures my attention. I'm not stopping. Like my parents, they will read every single post because they've only got, you know, 50 friends and follow 3, you know, so like, and those people hardly ever post. So it's like, you know, they will actually read every single post, you know,
checking out what you're up to, really.
They are like, I'll tell you a
You're
story.
behaving yourself.
Well, listen to this. So we had one of my cousins just wrote a comment on a Facebook post on the news, right? It was like, you know, the news was, I don't know, something with China and Australia, some trade agreement, right? And my cousin just wrote a comment on that, you know, or replied to someone's comments or whatever. And then my dad pulled him up about it at a barbecue. He's like, yeah, hey, I was on Facebook and I saw you commented on the BBC News on this article here. And my cousin's like, man, how did he see that? It's because he only follows 50 people or whatever. And he just actually stops and reads it. So I feel, you know, if you train that demographic and you've got a Facebook page or your friends on Facebook, like these people may not post every day and, you know, post selfies of them at your gym or whatever, but they'll definitely read your content and like it and comment. So I think it's a good point there. Okay, what about pre-screening, Heath? Do you do, I mean, most gyms you go to, you'll fill out a basic pre-screen form, maybe a waiver. Do you do a little bit more there, seeming that it's mature adults, or what's your training process look like for someone to participate in the classes or join your gym?
Yeah, absolutely. We've developed a pretty stringent pre-screening process because we believe it's a very critical area of our business. So yeah, a lot of emphasis goes onto that. And in fact, before anyone can actually do any of our group sessions or classes, they've got to come in and see us 3 times prior to that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, it's good. We've been managed to so I'll take you through it a little bit. So quite often they need a clearance from their GP. And when in doubt, get a clearance. It protects us, it protects them as well. So yeah, we take them through a screening process, which is an assessment as well. So we assess lower and upper body strength, balance, core, cardiovascular endurance, and then really nut out their goals with them as well. And it's a really good time to get to know the clients and let them know that we're not like everyone else, or we actually, are super concerned about, them and, healthy aging and whatnot, but also empowering a lot of these people, because you got to understand, a lot of these people might not have trained in 10, 20, 30 years, if ever. Some of them, I think regular physical education came into schools in about 1955 in Australia. So some of them, if they're older than that, may have never actually done anything before. So they may have gone to the doctor for the first time. The doctor says, you're overweight, you're pre-hypertensive or pre-diabetic or whatever, and the best thing to do is start exercise. And all of a sudden, so that's why that when they do come to us, we've got to really make them feel comfortable that they're doing the right thing, and let them know that by asking them a series of questions and whatnot, we're willing to getting to know them as an individual. We just don't want them to come in and be a member and they're forgotten about, kind of thing. So, and the same screening process we also do on a quarterly basis as well, just to kind of see whether, we're in the right trajectory moving forward in terms of their exercise programming and whatnot. But also, our screening process helps us identify what classes they should actually go into as well.
Okay, makes sense. I love it because it's the assessment as well. It's not just, okay, great, you're good to go, get in the door. It's like, cool, here's our baseline measures. Look, 3 months time, let's have a look and see how you've gone. Great, 3 months time, let's have a look again. Question here, Heath, just in terms of the business side of things, is that a one-on-one session that you'd run that person through? And is that a extra fee? Is it like, hey, look, here's our gym fees, but look, to join the classes, you need to do 3 one-on-one sessions, which is going to be, X amount of dollars, or is that included in the joining fee, or how does that work from a business side?
Yeah, sure. Good question, mate. No, it isn't. It isn't an extra cost. It's just part of the way we do our business. So yeah, and it's a one-on-one. They come in, have a meet and greet. If they do have time, then it takes about around 45 minutes to do their initial screening and assessment. They then go away and come back kind of, in the next few days, kind of thing. Once we've formulated their program for them, they then come back. We put them through a one-on-one session, and that's pretty much taking them through what they'd be doing in the group session, but they do it in a one-on-one basis. And obviously, any questions that they have for us, or they can ask us questions at any time throughout their journey with us. But in particular, it's the best time to get it out of the way, just to really understand what they're doing and what correcting any techniques, or just further refine a lot of their loads, etc. And then after that, they're good to go. After that one-on-one session, they're good to go into our classes and get them booked up to as many of those as they can.
And your classes, does everyone have their own program that they do? Is it like, in some group fitness classes, it'll be a circuit, for example. Hey, here's our 10 machines, everyone jump on there and do whatever. Or is yours more like, hey, Jono, here's your program here. You go and work on your program while Heath works on his program, and there's a trainer supervising, making sure. How does that sort of work in the group side? Or is it a bit of both? How does it work in the group side?
Yeah, sure. So I would say our classes are around 60 to 70% generic in nature, everyone does those same main body of exercises. They then, throughout the program or throughout the session, they're doing around 15 minutes of their own individual exercises.
Okay.
And these exercises are ones that we've identified could be an area of weakness from their initial screening and assessment. Should this particular person want to or need to work on balance, for example, we'll get them to do a few minutes worth of balance exercises, whether they have stretching is a massive one. If they got really really poor hamstring flexibility and mobility, we'll get them to work upon that as well.
Awesome. Okay, makes sense. And what are some of the common health issues that you see, Heath? Obviously, every person's different. You see a range of them. But let's say if there was a trainer that's looking to start work with older populations, what are the top sort of things they need to be aware of, conditions they need to understand if they want to start training this demographic?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of them, well, I'd say a lot of them are probably particularly healthy, which is fantastic. But we do see, I think when you age, a lot of issues you may have had when you're younger, especially something like a biomechanical issue, can be amplified as you're older. If you've got, say, a thoracic kyphosis or an anterior head tilt, or valgus knees or whatever, it just can be quite amplified. So we need to take that into consideration as well. But in terms of diseases that can be associated with aging, you got your hypertension, high cholesterol, arthritis related disorders, osteoporosis, which is, particularly ladies over the age of 60 or so are quite often screened for. We do see, quite a few of them with that. Which is once again fantastic, because a lot of times people or ladies that have been told they're pre-osteoporotic, they have been told the best thing that they can do is to do resistance activities to help with their bone mineral densities, etc. My own mother, who is up on the Gold Coast, she does my online programs, and I remember a couple of years ago, she called me up. She's absolutely beaming. She'd just been to a doctor for her second yearly bone mineral density test, and the GP was blown away that she'd actually improved. She, from whatever age, probably from 68 to close to 70 it was. She it had improved, and the doctor kind of said to her, what have you been doing? And she goes, I do, some online exercise programs, my son's exercise program. So, it goes to show that resistance or impactful exercise can actually, help with a lot of these, diseases that can be associated with aging. I mean, every one of those chronic diseases that I've just mentioned can be improved vastly with regular exercise and physical activity. I mean, exercise really is medicine.
100%. With those ones, so looking at those conditions, just one question about, I guess, the arthritis. Does that cause any major changes to the program? Is there anyone, if they come in and they've got bad arthritis, okay, we can't grip these dumbbells, or we need to do something here? Is there anything drastically different with arthritis?
Yeah, they can be, for sure. We need to take that in consideration. And, what we emphasize with our programs is always an alternative exercise. If someone can't do something in particular, we've got something pretty much up the sleeve that they can do straight away. On the day, if a particular person's pain is a little bit, out of control on that particular day, we can always give them something else. And usually we target a completely different part of the body. But in terms of, say, someone who does have poor grip strength, yeah, absolutely, we'll get them onto, say, instead of doing, say, a dumbbell kind of, squats or something like that, we might get them to jump on the machine, or there's always a way around it. But it's something that, if you're a trainer at our place, you need to think on your feet, because you're quite often dealing with things that you wouldn't be dealing with in younger adults. So there's always something you need to be thinking about, I suppose.
For sure. Okay, final question, Heath. Let's say there's a trainer watching this and they're like, all right, I love working with the older population. I want to start making that my focus. Where should they start? Obviously, the first thing is to follow you on social media and see what you guys are doing. But would you have any tips you recommend? Any courses they do, any books they read, anywhere they go and volunteer, if they just train their parents or their grandparents or their friends? What would be the best place for a trainer to start who wanted to master in that field?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can say first and foremost, training mature adults there's so much satisfaction out of it. A lot of people probably avoid them because they're scared. Maybe it's not cool, it's not sexy or whatever. But if you look after a mature adult, they will be your most loyal customer out of them all. Not to mention, they absolutely love talking. So if you do the right thing, you'll get plenty of their friends that come through the door. But in terms of understanding a little bit more about mature adults, once again, don't be scared to train them, and reach out if you've got some mature adults in your gym. Put your hand up and see if you can be that person to try and make them move better and feel better, etc. And when you do their programming for them, you've got to work with them and understand that either they haven't trained for years or have never trained. So make that exercise program complex but simple. So when I say complex, it needs to be balanced. Strength training 2 to 3 times per week, which is what the American College of Sports Medicine recommends. Those programs should always include mobility in there, in the strength programs, balance, proprioception, core. Also, body weight exercises are really important. But at the end of the day, you've got to make the program fun. And if you think that when people get to a certain age, they don't like to be challenged, you could not be more wrong. We've got, heaps, and whether they love being challenged within themselves or challenging, amongst the other class participants, they absolutely love it. We've got, several different kind of rowing challenges that we do and a few other things. And, so it's super rewarding. And, we've got an aging population. So, I hope more people do actually get into this because it's very under-resourced and there's a massive demographic out there waiting to be targeted.
Oh, yeah, it's funny, because I was looking for someone to do this podcast and it took me ages to find someone. I'm like, man, I just can't find anyone that does exactly this thing here. And I was just lucky that you happen to live down the road from my parents. But it's like, I was almost surprised. I'm like, man, there's all these people that need exercise that in a way want exercise, or they've got more of a reason to exercise, but there's just not the resources. So I love what you're doing there, Heath. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. Is there anything I should have asked you but didn't, or anything you want to finish us off with?
Mate, I think it's been a pretty well-rounded interview. So I've enjoyed it, and hopefully, the listeners have got a little bit out of it. But once again, don't be scared of training older adults. Don't treat them like older adults, and don't call them seniors. They don't like that. But yeah, look, mate, it's a super rewarding position to be in. And I'm really looking forward to building this business even more because it's just starting to take off now, and it's great fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks very much for your time, Heath.
Good on you, mate. Thank you so much.